Patel is joining us. Former DoD Chief of Staff, former federal prosecutor, and public defender. He has selected 60 juries for trial service. Kash, been a bit, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So let's start. The two big news items today. A lot of campus anti-Israel stuff, but also the Trump trial that is going on, which is in some ways it's still hard to believe, even though it's happening. This is where we are as a country. This is what's happening. This is what's underway. What's your sense of it? And I'd start with this. Do you feel like there's any chance that anyone on this jury might be fairly disposed toward the truth of this case and Donald Trump in general?
Look, there's always a chance, but there's a reason I live in Las Vegas and don't gamble as often as I used to. And people who are gambling on this trial will probably lose. The reality is what is happening. The tragedy is the destruction of due process. And for some reason, these prosecutors and judges have teamed up to think that the system of due process under the Constitution no longer applies to Donald Trump, or that they can selectively apply it to him in pieces. And what I mean by that is just look at the opening statement today. The lead prosecutor, who used to be the number 3 prosecutor at the Department of Justice, he gave the opening statement, this guy Colangelo. And he said, he told the jury, Donald Trump is here because of a criminal conspiracy related to election fraud. Now, the Constitution forbids specifically any mention of crimes not charged in the indictment to be presented to the jury. But this judge, of course, lapped it up and allowed it. There is no charge of conspiracy anywhere in the indictment, and all they continue to do is shred the due process rights of Donald Trump and that of the Constitution in the process and weaken our system of justice.
I think that's a really important point you just made. Who exactly is involved in this trial? The Biden administration, Joe Biden himself, many of their allies in the media, they regularly, I was reading the Times this morning, laying out all their analysis and reading all their articles, saying, oh, there is no grand conspiracy against Donald Trump. This just happens to be Alvin Bragg. It just happens to be Fani Willis. Jack Smith is totally independent. Merrick Garland's not involved in these cases. What did you just say? I think this is so important. The former number 3 position at the Department of Justice is now prosecuting a state court case. Now, you have a little bit of a background in this. In general, wouldn't this be akin to being a major leaguer and going back to A-ball? In other words, you would want to be as high as you could be in the Department of Justice. Number 3 overall in the DOJ is a big friggin' deal when it comes to trial prosecution. A state court in Manhattan, is that not a crazy, a decent analogy in a sports perspective? It'd be like if you made the major leagues deciding to go back to single A or double A ball to prosecute a state city court crime like this.
Yeah, as a sportsman, I love the analogy. And look, you're absolutely right. What it shows is the 2-tier system of justice. And just to highlight the importance of this, the number 3, there's the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and then this guy who used Colangelo, who used to sit at the head of the Civil Rights Division as the PDAG. And now he has left that job, gone on to join Bragg's team, and not just quietly join the team. He delivered the opening statement. And this guy, who's been a career prosecutor, who knows you cannot tell a jury about any uncharged crimes, opened with just that. And that shows you the level of connectivity between the DOJ, the Biden administration, and Bragg's office. And so when people say, oh, no, there's no conspiracy here, well, there's no such thing as coincidences in the United States government, and certainly not at Joe Biden and Merrick Garland's DOJ. And now we're seeing it front and center, and this judge is allowing it all to happen.
Speaking of Kash Patel, formerly of Trump's DoD, he was chief of staff at the Pentagon. Kash, and also former federal prosecutor. Kash, if they find Trump guilty, and we know that's an if, who knows where the jury's going to go with this, what do you think will happen, and how quickly do you see it happening?
Well, what's supposed to happen, especially in a case like this, is that there would be an appellate process and the defendant would remain out of custody because this is a nonviolent crime and you're talking about an individual who has literally zero criminal history. And we're talking about an instance where there are no victims of violent crimes. But what will happen here is this judge will probably take matters into his own hands, continue to create a new system of justice, and try to probably imprison Donald Trump and deny him his appellate rights that the Constitution allows. So it's going to be a very, very unfortunate series of events if Donald Trump is convicted, because it would be unlawful and unconstitutional. But then what this judge could do to him is completely remove him from the campaign trail, which that is his clear impetus. If you've ever watched even just one day of this trial, this judge has made up his mind like Judge Engoron did in the civil case that just happened before this one. These guys have convicted Trump in the court of public opinion and are going to convict him in their own courtrooms. They're just waiting for the process to play out.
Kash, how do you break down the other cases? You've been involved in the criminal court system before. As crazy as this New York City case is, Thursday we have the presidential immunity case that's being argued, the oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court. Presumably sometime in June we'll get that decision, as well as the Fisher case having to do with whether or not you can prosecute for effectively impeding official proceedings, as has been occurring with many of the January 6th related charges. How's the timeline work to you for this? Do you think that the New York City case is the only one that would go all the way through and get a jury verdict? Or do you think there will be a possibility of another case as well between now and November 5th?
Well, again, if we were on the normal timeline of justice, these cases would not even be charged this year. They would be charged later. And the timeline for average prosecution is 2 to 4 years. But they took the HOV lane because it's Donald Trump. Now, we'll see what the Supreme Court decides, but it's unequivocally, in my opinion, executive privilege for the president to have acted in the way he did, and that should apply here. It's also another indication that Joe Biden, who personally had to dissolve executive privilege for the DOJ to bring that prosecution in D.C. and Florida, he had to personally get involved. So when he says, I'm not involved, that's another charade. But once the Supreme Court decides on that case and also the obstruction case, which is a very important point you bring up, the Supreme Court, I believe, is going to deny the use of this obstruction statute, which is from the Enron financial crimes fiasco, and they're going to throw out 300-plus convictions related to January 6th. And that should upend the entire timeline of any of the trials forthcoming. But we don't know what these district court judges who are going to do, like Chutkan, who have already basically stated that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and they want him removed from the electoral process.
Speaking to Kash Patel, former federal prosecutor. Kash, Trump is facing all this stuff. How is he able to hold up under all of it? You know, with multiple criminal prosecutions. I mean, I know you and the president are in contact, and he knows you well, and you may well be a senior figure in his next administration. Not to get too far ahead of things, but that's very possible here. How is he able to do this? Run for president with 4 absolutely insane felony criminal indictments, 2 federal and 2 state against him right now.
Yeah, I was just with the president the other week, and it's a conversation. Many of my conversations I don't reveal, but this one I'm happy to. I asked him, Mr. President, how do you deal with this exact question? You're being falsely prosecuted. They're taking away your money. They're coming after your family. They're defaming you constantly. And his answer is really simple. He goes, Kash, the future of this country is at stake, and he will not let it fail on his watch. And I think that drives him every single day, that he wakes up and he says, when the other side says, oh, Donald Trump's just in it for the money and fame, well, the reality shows it's the opposite. He's fighting for everybody else's right to have fame, to have money, to have the right to be an American citizen. And that energizes him more than anything I've ever seen. And I don't think you're going to see Donald Trump slow down. Every time they throw an arrow at this guy, he ingests it, and he becomes the juggernaut of justice and rolls down the street, whether it's in New York, D.C., Florida, or elsewhere, and convinces more and more Americans that this 2-tier system of justice has been weaponized for political purposes. And he's asking Americans not only to recognize that, but to go to the polls in November and elect him so we can fix our constitutional republic.
Last question for you, and I think you kind of hinted at this at the beginning. This is obviously a rigged jury, that 87% of people voted against Donald Trump in this jurisdiction. based on analyzing the 12 jurors, the 6 alternates, everything else, what do you think the chances are, first of all, of a not guilty verdict? Buck and I both put that at 0. Do you think there is, and I'm curious if you would agree with that, do you think there is potentially a juror on this trial that might be willing to refuse to vote to convict and essentially give what would be a win, I think, through a hung jury? Based on what you've seen, based on your analysis of this case, how would you assess that probability?
Yeah, look, going back to my public defender days and my federal public defender days where I defended scores of criminals in front of scores of different juries in different courtrooms, we always used to say the following: you just need one. You don't need all 12. You just need one. And that's what you guys were talking about to get to a hung jury. Now, I think the chances that one of those 12 jurors agrees with Donald Trump's presentation of the evidence is strong. But the chance that that same juror withstands the scrutiny that is going to come at his way from the media and the rest of the jury and the world, because this is the most important criminal prosecution in literally U.S. history, if not the world, that may fold that juror. That may succumb him to the pressures of the outside. But if the jurors actually stuck to the facts and the law, there's no way any of the 12 would convict Donald Trump, because there is no crime here. It's not a hush money case. It has to do with ledgers and payments made to a lawyer, all of which is above board. But I think Donald Trump's attorneys are looking for that one attorney, and there's a chance that they find him.
Kash Patel, everybody. Kash, appreciate you being with us, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Number 1 fantasy sports app in America's PrizePicks. Easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And if you haven't downloaded PrizePicks, do it today. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the number. It's about the players, not the teams. You look for sports you know best and that you follow the most, and you can pick more or less. Buck can do this now in the state of Florida. You texted me that this morning. Every time you play, you pick 2 to 6 players, make that one decision. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 picks. And tonight, got a gift for you, a gift for the people. One of those 4 is an automatic win, because if you pick Nikola Jokic and you choose more, he's given away at just a half point. That is, if Jokic scores 1 point, you are 1/4 of the way to 10xing your money. They are giving you, as a gift to the people, PrizePicks is, you can't lose on Nikola Jokic more tonight. As a part of that, you can mix and match Major League Baseball, NHL, NBA, all of these different games going on. It's a good time of year. Lots of playoff games, lots of baseball. You can get hooked up now. Best way to get action, more than 30 states, California, Georgia, Texas, Florida. Download the free PrizePicks app, open your account, use my name, Clay, and you get $100 to match up to $100. You put in $100, they'll give you $100 more, so you would have $200 in your account. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use my name, Clay, to get set up and get that deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. PrizePicks.com. Use my name, Clay, C-L-A-Y.